In this video, we're going to talk all about mindfulness meditation. What is it? How does it work? What does the science have to say? And how can you use it in your life to make your life better? All right, let's get that intro rolling and get started. For the last number of years, there has been a growing interest in using meditation and other ancient wisdom practices to benefit us in our everyday lives in Western society. Now, there's something that's important to understand about this whole process, which is that meditation, we're told, is good for us, and it looks like it's this profound experience, sitting down perhaps on a meditation cushion, closing your eyes, and learning how to feel more balanced or bring some calm into your life. Find your Zen, so to speak. That's great, but how can we make it practical and usable? And what does the science actually say that makes it work? So we need to go all the way back through the lineage, through the history of mindfulness. I've written about this in a chapter in a book on holistic healing. So if you want to take a deep dive into the history and all the different lineages of mindfulness or meditation, these contemplative practices, you can check it out. I'll make sure that I hit you up with the link in the description below. But let's just take a moment here to look at what its implications are today. There's a guy named Jon Kabat-Zinn. He's a popular author. He's done a lot of work in the world to train psychologists specifically on how to use mindfulness. So what is mindfulness? Well, it's a type of meditation. It's a way of paying attention. How Jon Kabat-Zinn defines mindfulness in his landmark kind of cornerstone mindfulness book that brought mindfulness to us here in the West is back in 1994 when he wrote, "Mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally." So let's just take that apart for a moment. So all the way back in 1994, in Jon Kabat-Zinn's landmark book, Wherever You Go, There You Are, Mindfulness Meditation for Everyday Life, what he's saying is that there's a particular way to do mindfulness. And this brings up a really big question for us. What is the point of mindfulness? Why would you want to do it? Is it about a practice, an ongoing process that you engage in your life? Or is it about a specific type of outcome? Now, this is what has created a lot of debate in some of these mindfulness communities where different paradigms, different approaches to doing mindfulness have come up with different definitions, saying like, okay, well, this is our definition of mindfulness. This is how we conceptualize its use. So for example, in the dialectical behavior therapy program, they have a very specific way of looking at what mindfulness is. What I'm going to argue to you is that mindfulness is not whatsoever about an outcome. It's not about stress reduction. It's not about feeling better, or it's not about achieving a certain state of mind. Instead, mindfulness is a way of training your mind to learn how to pay attention, to just notice what's going on for you. The process of paying attention is independently mediated to increase your psychological flexibility. And what we mean by psychological flexibility is this really cool new measure of health that can help you come in contact with really difficult stuff, whatever pain you might be experiencing in your life, and learning new ways of interacting with it so that you're free to do what you want in the presence of all that pain. So let's play around with this for a second here. So if Jon Kabat-Zinn's original definition is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally, let's take that apart. Non-judgmentally, can you be non-judgmental? I'd argue it's pretty difficult, near impossible. Look around the environment that you're in. Notice that you're going to have judgments about the things that you see, whether it's something that you like, something that you dislike. Maybe you look at your keyboard or the edges of the device that you're watching this video on and you're kind of like, oh, like that could be cleaned. I don't really like seeing it so dirty. It makes me feel a little anxious when it's messy. There's going to be different judgments that show up for you. You might even have judgments about how I'm wearing my hair today or the color that we made the background. Whatever shows up for you, just notice that. You're going to have judgments. So let's talk about the in the present moment piece. You can only be mindful here now. You can only do it now. The only time that you can be mindful is in the present moment. I would argue that that's not really something we need to include in our definition, in the present moment, because here you are right now in the present moment. The present moment is only here now. A great way to be in the present moment is to just notice sensations that show up for you, because those are always happening here and now. Notice the sensation of your hand making contact with something in your environment. Notice the temperature of your hands right now. That's a present moment experience. That's something you can do here now. Let's talk about the on purpose part. You're not going to be mindful by accident, right? Paying attention to what's happening here and now requires your attention, that you direct your attention, sort of like turning on a flashlight and you point the light, you point that beam of light at one spot. That's you paying attention on purpose. You have to do it that way. You can't just be mindful by accident. So I'd say that the on purpose part isn't really something that we need to dive too deeply into. Instead, let's just acknowledge that mindfulness or paying attention is something that we do. It's an active form. And let's work our way back to the in a particular way part of the definition. Well, as it turns out, you don't just need to close your eyes and pretend to look serious. I know, I'm creating a little bit of a caricature of mindfulness, but there's so many different ways that you can be mindful. You can be mindful as you cook, as you eat, as you walk, as you dance, as you do yoga. There's all these different ways of knowing, and you can use those different ways of knowing the present moment, of knowing your experience in order to access mindfulness. And finally, we come to my favorite part of the definition, paying attention. Isn't that so simple? Like, they're just such sweet and simplistic words, paying attention. Mindfulness, quite simply at its core, is about paying attention, just noticing what's showing up for you. All right, so I hope I haven't offended John Kabat-Zinn. I doubt that he's watching this video, but if he did, I'd really get a kick out of that. Comment below, John. Say hi. But the idea behind what we're talking about here is that I want to help you access what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is a way of you learning how to train your mind to be here now, to pay attention, to be in the present moment, right now, to notice what's happening. So let's debrief this a little bit. What we're really talking about is that mindfulness is a practice. It's something that you're going to do over and over and over again. You never just do a meditation and check off mindfulness from your list of things to do today and say, okay, that's it, I'm done for the day. Instead, can we discover a process that you can introduce into your life, into your way of being, into your routine, into what you do day in and day out? Whether it's driving to work in the morning, making your breakfast, going to class, taking care of your children, doing something important at work, maybe doing something really technical at work that you do over and over and over again throughout your day. You could do it by rote, like driving a car or operating some kind of heavy machinery or software. You see, the idea is that we can get so caught up in our heads, the things that happen between our ears and behind our eyes, that it's really easy to, let's say, not practice being here now, being sensitive to what's in front of us. And that is what is at the heart of mindfulness. It's so simple. It's just about paying attention. It's about being free from the tyranny of the thoughts that are constantly being cranked out that are trying to tell you to do all of these different things. Instead, mindfulness is about being in this moment. What we're not looking for from mindfulness is just a whole bunch of practices or techniques, all these little methods like, go out and take a raisin and just hold it in your hand and notice the raisin and notice the texture of the raisin. We're not looking for more and more techniques to do mindfulness. Instead, we want to expose a practice that you can use in your everyday life to empower you to be in the present moment. And it's easy to get sucked out of the present moment. Our world is not designed for us to be here now and to be focused on what's happening in this moment. Our minds are evolutionarily designed for us to focus on danger that's coming down the pipe, for us to figure out, okay, well, what's the next problem I'm going to have to deal with? I like to joke, like, your mind doesn't like having an unemployment slip. Like, just pause here for a moment. You can watch the screen if you want, but just take a moment to do absolutely nothing and just sit there. Notice what your mind does. My mind just came up with the thought as I was just sitting here staring into the camera, people think this is stupid. Or you should think about some clever B-roll or some sort of text screen that you could put up so that people aren't just sitting there staring at you, right? Our minds are constantly going to come up with things. Even if you close your eyes for a moment, take 3 breaths on purpose, something will distract you, a thought will arise. Mindfulness is about learning how to roll with the stuff that our minds come up with, learning how to pay attention to it so that we are here now, so that we choose what we want to do next. At its heart, if we wanted to sum up what mindfulness is really about, it's about empowering you to be in the present moment so that you can choose where you go next. Let's talk a little bit about what actually makes mindfulness work. Mindfulness is about awareness. It's about you paying attention in a sustained way. We can pay attention to something for 2 seconds and then get totally distracted by a thought about it, or a judgment, or a memory. Instead, what we want to do is pay attention in a sustained way, meaning maintain your attention. Be really committed to actually noticing what's going on here, now. Come back to the present moment. And when you get distracted, notice that. Instead of being like, oh, okay, well, my meditation practice sucks. Like, I've been trying this meditation stuff, Tim. I hit up some of those mindfulness meditations that you have posted in the description, and I do those things, and I just constantly start thinking about my grocery list. I just suck at meditation. I guess I can't do it. No, that's the wrong answer. You see, the conclusion that you should be coming to is you're getting distracted, and that you need to listen to that noise. You need to be better at identifying when your mind goes from, okay, I've got my attention here, I'm noticing this breath moving in and out of my body, and all of a sudden, I'm starting to notice I'm thinking about my groceries, and I'm noticing that I'm having that thought because I'm the observer to it, right? I'm the one that catches these things. I'm the one that's in the present moment. So here I'm noticing my thought, and I'm going to come right back to my breath. And here I'm thinking like, oh great, I suck at mindfulness. I actually got distracted. Okay, you're going to take a breath there again. You're going to notice that, and you're going to come back to whatever's right here, right in the present moment in front of you. It's not that you're not allowed to be distracted. It's not that you're not allowed to have thoughts and judgments and sensations and memories that actually get in your way or that take you off and hook you and pull you deeper into your mind. Instead, what we're looking to have you do is actually pay attention. Notice when your mind does get hooked, gets distracted. When a sensation shows up, like you're sitting there, you're trying to do some mindfulness of breath, and you're noticing that your nose is really itchy, and you have the thought like, should I itch my nose right now? It's not about whether or not you itch your nose. It's about how do you show up to that? Can you notice that your mind got distracted by your nose being a little itchy? It's about paying attention. Really use your awareness. Sustain it. And there's different ways that you can be mindful. For some people, closing their eyes and noticing the sensations of breath can actually be really difficult for them. They get lost all of the time. There is a chunk of the samples in these mindfulness studies that are mindfulness non-responders. And that doesn't mean that you're broken or that you can't do mindfulness. It just means that the methods or the techniques that were being used in that study might not be right for you. There's some other ways of being more engaged that might actually help you to practice this mindfulness work. It might help you to practice paying attention so that you can do this. So let me just give you a brief example. Let's take yoga as an example. Back in 2013, I published a paper saying like yoga has been largely left out of the scientific literature as a mindfulness practice. Instead, we need to focus on how yoga can be theorized as a mindfulness practice. How inhaling to just sweep your arms, lift your gaze, that right there can actually be a mindfulness process. Because what you're doing is you're paying attention, right? You're noticing the sensations of breathing and lifting your arms. And maybe that's a more helpful way to help you get out of your head and more engaged with here now, what's happening in your life right in front of you, to be sensitive to the present moment. There's a number of other ways that you can practice mindfulness. And the idea is to discover what works for you to train the process of paying attention, of just being in the present moment. Come in contact with it. Even coming in contact with when you get sucked out of the present moment. Because as long as you're the one there behind your eyes that's noticing it, you're doing the work. You're actually practicing mindfulness. So there's two last things I want to tell you about that the literature really shows us is working in mindfulness. It's regulating your attention in a systematic way. And what do we mean by regulate your attention? Well, pay attention, right? Turn on the proverbial flashlight of your awareness and systematically shine it. Bring it back over and over and over again. That's how you train your mind to be mindful, to be in the present moment. Number two, you need to focus on the present moment experience. And remember, experience is anything that's happening. Content that shows up in your mind, a thought like, oh, I really like this, I really dislike that, I can't believe that this is happening, oh, I can't believe this is happening again and getting caught up in a memory. Whatever shows up for you, remember the point is to pay attention to it. Anything that you notice in the present moment has to be grist for the mill. Even if it's an unpleasant thought, an unpleasant sensation. You don't get to choose what thoughts, feelings, sensations, or memories get dealt to you. You get to choose how you show up to them. That's what mindfulness is all about, paying attention to them so that you can choose what you do next. You can be free. And the science has a lot to say about mindfulness. There's all kinds of amazing feats, all these incredible outcomes and benefits of practicing mindfulness. It has applications to everything from anxiety to depression, even severe mental health related problems like diagnoses of schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. And we can use mindfulness training you to be more here in the present moment to increase your empathy, your connection with others, and relationship issues. And when you have more awareness of how your private experiences influence your behavior, you're more free. You're not constantly operating under negative reinforcement like, help me escape this. I don't want to feel this thing. Instead, we can help you to understand how, when you're in a bad mood, it can actually influence how you hear things that people say to you, how they can become more cutting, more critical to you. That's what's at the heart of this work, is it's allowing you to be separate, to be free from all this stuff that you notice that shows up for you. And we can also, through mindfulness, train you to be aware of how your impulses, how your desires influence your behavior. See, if you're more sensitive to what's happening here and now, you can also better understand why you do what you do. For example, it's so easy to miss out on crucial information that's happening right here and now. You can get so easily caught up in your head that you're not sensitive to the smile of somebody that you love, or just enjoying the pleasure of drinking a smoothie that you have a real appetite for. Instead, you can be completely caught up in your head, problematizing, problem solving, thinking about the next problem that's coming down the proverbial pipe, the next thing that's coming for you that you need to deal with. Instead, learning how to be here now and actually enjoy what's in the moment, what's being presented to you. Also, including how to not be so reactive to difficult stuff when it shows up, and choosing what you want to be about. Because again, remember, mindfulness is this process over and over again of coming back to here now. So imagine mindfulness can help us to enjoy the smile of somebody that we love or take in something pleasurable in an enhanced way. But mindfulness can also be a huge benefit to us when we're presented with something painful, something yucky that we don't want to experience, like anxiety, fear, a phobia, sadness, a deep sense of grief, an impulse to use a drug or a substance. Because when we're more in the present moment, when we're here now, in the present moment, we're more free to choose how we behave, how we react. When we're in the present moment, we're more free to choose what we do next, how we respond to these different experiences. Imagine other examples of things that might not seem like hugely crucial information, but are important to you throughout your day and contribute to your quality of life, like when you're commuting, whether you're on public transit or you're driving. How easy is it for you to get caught up in your mind and completely miss your exit or your stop? You see, we talk a lot in sort of popular culture about this idea of being on autopilot, but what does that really mean, and how does mindfulness interrupt that? You see, autopilot is us being stuck in our heads, and that's not inherently a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. We can do amazing things by being completely in our heads. We can strategize and plan. We can do complex mathematic equations. Our minds are incredible. The difficulty, though, is when we get stuck in our heads and that's not actually a benefit to us. Mindfulness can help you to be more sensitive to when it's useful to be up here, stuck in your head, versus actually sensitive to what's happening in the here and now in front of you. Again, I don't take that word lightly. Earlier I called it empowerment. That's really what's at the heart of what we're doing here. We're empowering you to be free, to choose what you do next. In the mindfulness literature, there's these different attitudes or ways of thinking that we can use to help us understand how we relate to our experiences. I'm going to go through these attitudes because I think they're useful, and I'm going to give you practice for each one. I'm also going to give you my own spin on these attitudes because the modern literature influences our thinking around these attitudes in a different way. The first one is non-judging. Now, notice that you have judgments. They show up for you all the time. Look around the room that you're in. Notice different objects. Notice the judgments that show up, things that you like, things that you don't like, things that you wish were improved. Even looking at this video, you may have a judgment about the color of the light of the background that I chose, or you might have a judgment about how my hair is looking today. Whatever shows up for you, but just take a moment to notice that you have judgments. As you deepen your mindfulness practice and get to know this work and yourself a little bit better, I believe that you'll start to recognize that being non-judging is actually pretty much impossible. Our minds love to come up with evaluations about things. Our minds have an opinion about everything. My challenge to you is to focus on what those judgments are and not to get caught up in them. Acknowledge that you have judgments. As soon as you recognize them as judgments, that's when you're free to choose how you want to relate to that thing. You can't choose whether or not you like a flavor or whether or not you feel a certain feeling. These things just show up for you. Instead, what you get to choose is how you react to that, how you deal with it. So my challenge to you is to learn how to pay more attention to the judgments that your mind comes up with so that you don't get caught up in them, so that they're not taken as literal, so that you're not forced into being governed by your judgments. Instead, you get to choose how you want to react to these situations. The second attitude we're going to talk about is patience. We have super busy schedules. When I look around in my life, my friends, my family's lives here in the West, we have really busy lives. Now with all of these electronic devices like phones that have us connected to the internet, our email and messaging 24/7, it seems like the first thing that people do in the morning when they get up is check their messages, check their email, check your Twitter feed, check your YouTube comments. There's all these different things that keep us connected. And although that can be wonderful, there are opportunities for us to be really impatient and for us to get sucked out of the here and now and to not enjoy what's happening in front of us. And impatience can push you on to do the next thing after that, and the next thing after that, and to plan to be 10 steps ahead. Mindfulness is about learning how to be patient, both with yourself and with your experience. Being impatient is one of the reasons why we're so rarely here. And being patient invites you to be here now, to focus on what's happening in this moment, and to allow it to unfold. And if being here now doesn't feel as rewarding as you would like it to be, it's not as delicious and tasty, could you allow yourself to be patient? Allow this moment to unfold and be here now with whatever shows up for you. The promise here isn't that you're just going to feel better. The promise is that you'll be better at feeling what shows up so that you are more in control of what you do next. You get to choose where you go. And this patience involves a willingness to sit with all of this difficult stuff that's going to tell you this is a waste of your time, or oh my God, just react, like just do it, just fix that thing. What might a little bit of patience mean to somebody in your life that you love who's going through something difficult? If you could be patient with them, just take a breath, allow yourself to observe them, appreciate them even in that moment, and to not just reach in and fix things for them. What could that mean to them? For a lot of us, that could actually benefit us hugely. I know I need a lot of patience in my life. Believe it or not, I'm actually a slow learner with a number of things. Could you be patient with yourself? Allow your experience to unfold. Like if it was up to your mind exclusively, if you were just being really impulsive, maybe you would just exit out of your browser right now or, type in golden retriever puppy videos to just distract yourself and be like, yeah, forget about all this mindfulness malarkey. I don't need to worry about that stuff. I really mean it. Notice how your mind tries to gain that influence over you, wants to be a little impatient with you. Notice how that shows up in your life and what that's like. The third attitude that we're going to talk about is being curious, having the beginner's mind. When we're an expert in something, when we're totally immersed in a topic, we tend not to notice the minutiae, the small details anymore. Even in the environment that you're in right now, if it's somewhere that you've been, or even if you've been there for a while, pause, look around, see if there's something that you can see that you didn't notice before. Like I could pause and just notice what's going on in this environment. I'll give you an example, and I'm being really authentic in this. There's something that I've never noticed in this environment right now, even though I've been here many times and shot a lot of videos in this room. I've never noticed the details on this Buddha statue. I don't know if you can see it very well, but there's actually, it might be a little out of focus, but it has a definite two-tone sort of look, a sort of goldish kind of shine. But then there's a really dull, brownish kind of gray. And I've never noticed that it has the dull sort of hue. I just always kind of took that Buddha statue for granted and just kind of noticed this goldish, shimmering kind of bronze cast figure and was like, yeah, okay, that is what it is. Notice something in your environment that you can be curious about. Take in a little deeper. Breathe it in, notice it. And whatever shows up for you, allow yourself to pay attention to that. Remember, mindfulness is just about showing up to whatever's here now in this present moment. Just pay attention. Notice it. And notice, how does your perception of what's happening change when you're more aware of what's happening here now? Being curious about your experience can be especially difficult when there's things that you see day in and day out, people that you interact with day in and day out. The challenge here is to allow yourself to notice the details that you haven't noticed before, or details that you might take for granted. Said a little more simply, be sensitive to what's in front of you. Really take it in, acknowledge it. Let's try one mini little beginner's mind practice here, being curious about our experience. As you're watching this video, and I'm going to do this along with you, shift your body weight from side to side. Just notice how your body moves. Be really curious about the sensations that show up for you. Shifting your body from the left, moving all your weight over to the left sit bone, said less eloquently, your left butt cheek. Maybe shifting your body right, shifting your body weight to your right sit bones. And just notice sensations that you may never have noticed before. Whatever's there, whatever you're noticing, notice how that even changes as you're paying attention to it, how your experience of it changes. The fourth attitude that we're going to talk about is trusting. Now, a lot of people even come here to YouTube, even come to me to do work with me as a social worker because they're looking for wisdom or authority that's outside of themselves. They don't trust themselves. What mindfulness invites you to do is to be in your own experience and to notice whatever shows up. Because no matter what you notice, even if it's a completely illogical experience, because there are experiences that happen that are beyond being rational and logical, whether it's insecurity or any kind of episode that you're experiencing, what mindfulness asks you to do is to trust yourself in paying attention to it, in noticing its qualities, in noticing its details, and to not get caught up in it. And I hope that you can trust me in watching this video. You've made it so long into this video. I mean, we're pretty deep into this process and practice of mindfulness. So I'm hoping that you can trust me when I say that this mindfulness practice is about you learning how to be with you. There's no secret sauce. It's not like I'm going to give you this one meditation and all of a sudden the world just makes sense and you're better. Instead, what we're looking for with trust is for you to be with you, for you to understand how you relate to your experience. And that can be so hard for many people. I'm going to invite you to do a little practice here with me to get into the mindset of this attitude of trusting. So I'd like to invite you to take something that's in your environment, a pen, a phone, any kind of device that's around you, something that you can hold in your hand. I'm going to grab my water bottle. And I want you to just hold this item in your hand. Notice its weight. Notice colors, textures. Notice any judgments or evaluations that show up. Maybe move your hands along it. Notice its temperature. Notice different textures. And just be with whatever your experience is of this thing that you're holding in your hand. Even if you have some sort of an aversion to it, like, oh, this is, really annoying or really heavy, whatever shows up, just notice it. Be in this moment with it. All right, I'm going to ask you to put that aside. And before we end this exercise here, just notice what it's like to be in this moment. Observe that you're having an experience. And it doesn't need to be profound. It doesn't need to be this awe-inspiring moment like, I get it, Tim. I'm suddenly enlightened with mindfulness. Instead, just be with whatever shows up to you. This practice is about coming back to here and now, over and over and over again. The fifth attitude, this one's my favorite, non-striving. Because sometimes the harder that we work, our outcomes aren't actually any better. What non-striving is about is not trying to change what shows up for you. We can end up putting in a ton of energy and effort into trying to change what we think, what we feel, controlling for it, making sure we never feel that way again, or avoiding it, being like, I don't like that. I'm going to try and escape that right now. I'm going to totally get completely immersed in the world of 4K pornography or some kind of a substance. No way. What we do here with this mindfulness work, with paying attention here, now, with being in the present moment, what we do is we encourage you to actually not strive to eliminate those things. Be fully present without a need to change things. Let go of your agenda for things to feel good or be right or be correct. And this can be really hard for me when I'm somebody who does a lot of reading and I'm really big on what does the evidence say? It can be super hard for me to let go of being right when it comes to some of these more training topics and helping people to just engage in processes. Allow yourself to notice what you're striving. Allow yourself to notice when striving shows up for you. How do you try to fight against the things that you don't want to think and feel? Just be with that. Striving can especially show up for us in our lives when things aren't the way that we think they should be. I hear this from people all the time. I'll change. I'll be the parent or the partner. I'll be the employee that I could be, that I want to be, once I don't feel this way anymore. And can you see how that's already a trap? Because we can't control those things. This card of insecurity is coming for you. And I can't eliminate that. Instead, it's about you learning how to just roll with that card, how to play it, and how to live your life in the presence of it, for you to be here now, present, so that you can choose what you do next. Isn't it like such a write-off? Like, isn't it so invalidating for me to say something to you like, oh, well, in order for you to live a big, juicy life, you have to not be depressed anymore. Like, that's not real life. I mean, feelings of sadness and depression show up for us. Not striving to eliminate those can actually free you up to do something more with your life. If you're striving to not feel something, if you have this eliminative agenda, it's game over. Instead, mindfulness is about showing up to whatever is here and now. And we may have a distaste for what is here and now, but how can you learn how to play that when it shows up? To not be capsized by it, and to allow yourself to be free to choose what you do next. I'm going to invite you to do a brief mindfulness exercise to help you come in contact with this attitude of non-striving. So go ahead and hold your finger out in front of your face. Now I want you to shift your focus to the finger. Focus exclusively on it. And imagine that this finger being in front of you is really irritating. Say to yourself, I have to get rid of this. And without moving, focus on that finger, like laser beam focus with your eyes. And say to yourself, I don't like this, I have to get rid of this. And try to get rid of that finger, but without moving your hand. And just notice what shows up for you. Notice the emotional quality that's there as you stare at this irritating, infuriating finger that he is still here in defiance. Now allow your vision to soften. Maybe redirect your attention to the screen. I'm looking into the camera. Now notice that we haven't gotten rid of that irritating, infuriating finger. It's still there. But notice how you can now broaden your vision. Maybe you're noticing some details on my face. You may be noticing my finger in front of me. But notice that you can shift your focus. You don't have to strive to get rid of that finger. It can just still be there. I'm actually experiencing some double vision right now, and I'm noticing that, and that's okay as I come back and focus on what's important. So let's say this morning, if I woke up and I had like some experience, like I was being judgmental of myself and saying like, so this finger represents me being like, Tim, you're not attractive enough for like people to want to watch this video and pay attention to you, or, you have this like one crooked tooth, or, you have these kind of frizzy kind of hair. You have this weird curly kind of hair. I could focus on that, shifting my focus from you out there to me here, to this finger, to this thought that's really difficult and infuriating for me. And I could like, okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm not doing this YouTube video today. I'm not going to focus on offering you material, focusing on what's important to me, because I'm just focused on this. I'm going to strive to get rid of this. I don't like this. I don't want this. So instead, I can redirect my focus to what's important. Learn how to be with whatever judgments show up for me, and actually do what matters to me. That's the freedom of non-striving through mindfulness. And notice what your reaction to that exercise is. You can drop your finger, but just pay attention to whatever shows up for you. Remember, that's the whole crux of this work. Mindfulness is about paying attention. Just notice it. As we train our minds over and over again and we cultivate these attitudes in ourselves, we get better at noticing. We increase our noticing skills. Attitude number 6 is accepting. Now, I choose that word carefully, accepting. I don't just say acceptance, because we're never done with acceptance. We're constantly doing it. We're doing acceptance work over and over again. We're being accepting. Accepting, and I say it that way because it's an ability. It's about allowing yourself to see things how they are in the present moment, your thoughts, your judgments, emotions, sensations, reactions, whatever you notice, and to allow them to just be there. To have them, to not fight against them, to not control, escape, or try to avoid altogether. Just allow whatever it is that you're noticing to just be there. Now, acceptance is difficult because it requires an active turning towards what's painful for us. It's natural and not inherently problematic that we want to turn away, right? Remember, our mind is evolutionarily designed for us to actually escape things that we don't want to feel. You can miss lunch many times, but you can only be lunch once. This is an important thing that we do, right? Escaping what we don't want to feel. But can that become problematic for you? And in what situations is it problematic? And that's what mindfulness is empowering you to do, is to spend a little bit more time noticing some of the things that you want to turn away from and learn how to accept those. Now, if you're watching this video and you're going to be on your way to work this morning, or maybe you're going to be doing something after watching this video, I don't want you to just be blissed out in the present moment and be like, oh, Tim like really helped me find my Zen today, and I'm just like totally feeling at one with the earth. And as you're like stepping out onto the street, you're noticing a silver Honda Accord careening towards you at a high rate of speed. You're just noticing like the chrome on its grille. You're just noticing some sensations of heat in your chest. You're noticing your breath increase, and you're curious about that. And as the Honda's careening towards you at a high rate of speed, you notice the look of terror on the passenger's face. And then before you know it, you've been hit by this car. No, like I want you to escape. I don't want you to be accepting of the fact that here comes this car that's like careening towards you. I want you to jump and get out of the way. The heart of this accepting work, though, is to be accepting, to hold on to the things that are painful for you, that you can't avoid, that you can't control, that you attempt to avoid, escape, and control, and that how can that actually be problematic for you? How does that get in the way of you living a rich and meaningful life? If you focus on only feeling good, notice how that can pull you out of the moment. Notice how that can keep you focused on just chasing the next high, chasing the next good feeling. Is that problematic for you? Mindfulness invites you to be present with stuff that shows up. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories. Maybe there's somebody in your life that's really triggering to you. An in-law, a coworker, a neighbor, somebody that just like drives you nuts and you want to like scream at them and react in a hostile way. I'm not saying that mindfulness is going to make that person less infuriating and less difficult, but notice how when you're not accepting of those thoughts and feelings, it can govern your behavior in a problematic way. Mindfulness is about learning how to have those thoughts and feelings just as they are. And notice that when you're not accepting of things, your mind can become a whole lot more judgmental about them, right? Like, oh, well, I would feel so much better if they weren't like this, or if only they would change this, then my life would be so much better in this way or that way or this other way. You see, mindfulness is really asking you to be with that difficult stuff and to not fight it, to turn towards it. And that's hard. You see, trying to force things to be the way that they're not can cause tension and stress in you and lower your quality of life because you're focused on getting rid of difficult things rather than embracing those difficult things so that you can just move on and do what's important to you. If you can't change this feeling, okay, don't get caught up in it. See if you can be in the present moment and allow yourself to do something that's actually valuable to you. Can you see how all of these difficult things that we experience can actually get in the way of us living a life that's meaningful to us? That's the weird paradox of acceptance, of being accepting of these difficult things. It's like, if you don't want it, it's there, and it actually ruins your life even more. But if you allow it to be there, and you don't spend your time trying to avoid it and escape it, you can actually direct your energy towards what's important to you and have a bigger life as you carry this difficult stuff with you. Let's do a brief mindfulness practice around learning how to be accepting. I'd like to invite you to take a thought that you really struggle with. Maybe it's a judgment about yourself, maybe it's something that you're not doing so well in your life, but just allow that judgment to be there. And take a moment here. This might sound a little twisted, but we're really going to experiment with how to be more accepting of our experience. I want you to take that thought and imagine some of the different ways that you try to avoid or control for it. Some of the ways that you try to not have that, escape it. And whatever shows up for you, like pay attention to that. Like maybe there's a thought like you don't like the way that your body looks when you see yourself naked in the mirror. And so what do? Like maybe you avoid looking at your body naked in the mirror. Maybe when you get out of the shower or out of the bath, you towel off and you dry off without actually trying to catch a glimpse of your naked body. Maybe there's other thoughts and feelings that you struggle with, but whatever shows up for you, notice what you do in order to compensate for those. Now ask yourself, if you weren't busy doing that, if you could be accepting of that difficult stuff, what could you do differently? What would that look like? And really pay attention to what your mind comes up with. And if it comes up with more judgmental kind of answers, remember, mindfulness is about paying attention. Like notice that just showed up for you. You don't need to get caught up in that. How would you like to address this issue in your life? How would you like to walk with that? And really be with whatever comes up there. Maybe you would allow yourself to have a more balanced nutritional diet. Maybe that even brings up some discomfort for you. Maybe you've been escaping discomfort around your body image issues because it's actually really difficult for you to do things like meal planning, and there's a lot of like self-stigmatism around what you eat shows up. But allow yourself to notice that. When we are more accepting of our experience, we're more able to be in control of what we do next. The final attitude that we're going to work on is letting go. All of the work that we've been doing so far, all of the attitudes that we've been cultivating so far in order to do this mindfulness, this present moment work, is about softening into your experience, maybe softening into anxieties, feelings of sadness or depression, maybe relationship issues, being triggered by somebody in your environment, but softening into those and letting go. And what letting go might look like in your life could be different in all of the different situations that you find yourself in. And this is because there's all kinds of different experiences that we want in our lives, experiences that we wish to seek out, and experiences that we wish to escape. Letting go is about more easily recognizing what you want for yourself and allowing yourself to pursue that without an agenda to control, to avoid, or to escape, but to allow yourself to be fully present with your experience and to choose what you want your life to be about. That's what letting go is. It's not about gripping tightly onto how things ought to be or how they should be, striving to fight against those and to get better outcomes. Instead, you're feeling anxiety, you're feeling disappointment, allowing those feelings to be there and choosing what you want your life to be about. Letting go of the agenda to fight that. Being curious about the judgments that show up for you so that you don't have to get so caught up in these difficult feelings that arise, and being free to engage with the life that's important to you. That's what letting go is about. When we have thoughts, feelings, or sensations that we like, that are pleasurable to us, we naturally want to hang on to those. But the reality is that striving to keep those, striving to keep the things that we don't want away, judging how we feel, all those things aren't workable. Sometimes the plate of delicious food is empty. Sometimes that embrace from somebody that we love ends. Sometimes relationships end. What we need to make peace with is that these situations show up in our lives. How can we be accepting of those so that we can let go of trying to maintain all of that and do what's important to us next, to actually live our lives congruently with what's important to us, with what we want our lives to be about? Holding on to these experiences can actually create more stress and pain. Grief is the natural process of loving someone, of loving something, an experience. Our grief is the natural process of letting that go. And letting go needs to be a part of how you do this mindfulness process. Letting go means allowing each moment to pass. Pleasurable moments, difficult moments, but to not get sucked into them and to not pursue only one way of being, but to allow the ongoing flow of experience to crest. The tide comes in and it goes out. This is a part of your experience of being mindful, of being here now. If you really value how you look, you won't always be young and attractive. If you value having a lot of money, you may not always have that. Mindfulness invites you to be here now with whatever shows up. To not force yourself into these situations where you try to hold on to what you want and keep at bay what you don't want to feel. Instead, allowing your life to include all of the rich and varied experiences that you notice. Let's try a quick mindfulness exercise around letting go. Out loud or just to yourself, I'd like to invite you to say, I'm a good person. And say that about yourself. I'm a good person. And just sit with that. Notice any sensations, any judgments, any evaluations. Like, no, you're not. If Tim knew that you did this or this other thing. But just allow yourself to soak in whatever shows up. Maybe you have a positive experience of that. Say it one more time. I'm a good person. Be curious about what your mind tells you. If your mind tries to argue with you, or if your mind's really reinforcing to you and like, yeah, like that feels nice to say that. And once you notice your impulse to get caught up in thoughts or reactions, judgments or evaluations, you can return to saying once more, I'm a good person. Take a breath, notice whatever shows up. And whatever shows up, see if you can let that go. Find some stillness in your experience. The mind may be noisy and telling you all kinds of things. You may be presented with chaos in your environment, but see if you can find some stillness here now. That's what mindfulness is all about. So now that we've looked at all of these different attitudes of mindfulness, we've talked about what mindfulness is, how mindfulness works, let's talk about empowering you to actually do mindfulness on a daily basis. I'm going to attach a worksheet for you to use. Now, it's just some instructions on how you can pay attention on purpose throughout your life. I also have an ebook that you can download for free that will help you be a little more mindful in your everyday life as well, that uses these present moment processes to actually focus on commitment to behavior change. But here's what I want to do. I want to help you actually find what works for you as far as mindfulness goes in your everyday life. Because remember, mindfulness is wonderful if you can just commit to it as a meditation practice. That's great. And I want you to also practice this when you're out there in the world living your life, when you're off of the meditation cushion. So let's not take some situations that you find yourself in for granted, like eating, commuting, times where you can take time out of your day to slow down and pay attention on purpose. Go through these attitudes, see if you can pay attention to whatever shows up for you and be curious. Notice it, have that beginner's mind. Be accepting of what shows up for you. Notice if judgments arise. Pay attention to them. Acknowledge that you have judgments and evaluations. Acknowledge that you may wish to strive to avoid something or that you really have this impulse to do something else, and see if you can actually practice just trusting your experience and letting go of all of that stuff, to just be with whatever is there, to give yourself over to being in the moment rather than how the moment ought to be or how it should be in order to feel good. Just allow yourself to be with it. That's my challenge to you. See in all of these different areas where you can pay more attention on purpose. There's a whole body of literature that shows us that the majority of people, the majority of the time, are thinking about something other than what they're actually doing. And it's okay if you notice yourself getting caught up in that, thinking about something other than what you're doing. But pick some activities out of your day where you can be more purposeful and practice this mindful attention to notice whatever's happening right here and now. Make sure that you drop it in the comments below because I want to hear what practices you engage in your life to actually do this mindfulness work. Make a commitment, throw it out there to people. Like actually tell us something that you're willing to do this week, something that you're willing to do today in your life to introduce this mindfulness process day in and day out to do this work. That's my challenge to you. I want you to make this work workable for you so that you can see the benefits that we see in the research literature that shows that mindfulness actually helps people, that this process of paying attention on purpose is useful. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Make sure that you hit that like button. It's very reinforcing to me. It shows your support for this channel. And definitely share this work because you never know who in your life could benefit from learning more about mindfulness. Thank you so much.